Welcome to today's episode of Gurbani Reflections. I'm your AI companion, Akhar, here to guide you on a journey through the profound teachings of the GuruGranthSahib.
Welcome back to another Gurbani Reflections.
It's great to be here.
Every Wednesday, we dive into one of your big questions about Gurbani. And this week's deep dive is something that I think a lot of our listeners are thinking about.
Okay.
And it was inspired by a bunch of questions we've gotten recently.
Great.
It's all about what it means to be a householder. And more importantly, what it means to be a liberated householder.
Yes.
According to Gurbani.
Yeah.
Have you ever felt like you're juggling a million things in life?
Yeah.
Work, family
I keep doing that
responsibilities,
probably, so.
all these things that are kind of...
Pulling us in different directions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like we all have our own households to manage.
I like that.
Right.
I like that analogy.
So we have just the expert to help us unpack this.
Well, I'm happy to be here. And I think this is such an important topic. And it's something that Gurbani talks a lot about. It's really fascinating how Gurbani approaches this whole concept of a householder. You see, it goes beyond the conventional idea of just having a family and a home and all that.
Right.
Gurbani views everyone as a householder, regardless of their marital status or their, life circumstances.
So even if I'm living solo in a tiny apartment, I'm still a householder in the eyes of Gurbani.
Absolutely. Because Gurbani highlights that we all have this inner household.
Oh, interesting.
That we're constantly managing our body, our mind, and our intellect.
Got it.
Think of it as your immediate family.
Okay.
Your 10 senses are like your 10 children, always demanding attention, right?
Be funny.
And your mind is like a spouse, always seeking satisfaction.
That's a brilliant analogy. It makes it so relatable. So we're all born into this householder role, trying to keep our inner family happy. But how does that lead to liberation?
That's the million-dollar question, right? And that's where things get really interesting. Gurbani uses this term liberated householder to describe someone who has found freedom amidst these very responsibilities.
Interesting.
And we can look at what Gurbani says about this. On page 19, Gurbani says, the 5 relatives, the 5 senses of perception, weep and wail painfully and waste away through the love of duality.
Wow.
This shows how our senses, they crave these external things, and that leads to suffering.
That verse really hits home. We've all experienced those cravings and how they can kind of take us off track.
Absolutely.
So how do we move from being consumed by this, kind of this inner chaos, to experiencing liberation?
The key lies in understanding and practicing Dharma. But remember, in Gurbani, Dharma isn't about rigid rules.
That's right.
It's about aligning our lives with divine hukam.
So it's less about checking off a to-do list.
Yeah.
And more about living in a state of surrender and acceptance.
Precisely. A liberated householder, as described by Gurbani, embraces truthfulness, contentment, and they deepen their understanding of Gurbani through Nam and Jan. This brings them peace even amidst worldly duties. As it says on page 1377, Kabir, if you embrace or live the householder's life, then practice Dharma. Otherwise, you might as well retire from the world.
Wow.
Powerful.
That verse is a powerful call to action.
Yeah.
It's saying that if you're going to be in the world, then do it with awareness.
Yeah.
With purpose, with Dharma.
Yeah.
So a liberated householder isn't someone who renounced the world, but someone who navigates it with a unique perspective.
Exactly. They're not running away from their responsibilities, but rather transforming their relationship with them. Guided by the wisdom of Gurbani, they find liberation by understanding the true nature of reality and their place within it.
This is making a lot of sense. But how exactly do we achieve this understanding? Where does it come from?
That is where the practice of Shabad Vichar comes in. Shabad Vichar, it's more than just, reading or reciting Gurbani.
Right.
It's about deeply contemplating the meaning of the verses.
Okay.
Allowing that wisdom to penetrate our hearts and minds. It's the key to cultivating Shabad Surti.
Shabad Surti.
A state of God consciousness.
So Shabad Vichar is like a bridge between the words of Gurbani and our lived experience.
Exactly.
It's about connecting the dots and applying those teachings to our daily lives.
Precisely. And it's through this practice that we begin to understand the illusory nature of Maya. The fleeting nature of all things.
Right.
Take, for example, the verse on page 388. It says, bound to household possession, this house is mine, etc., is the dark pit.
That's a powerful image. It's so easy to get caught up in acquiring and possessing things. whether it's material possessions or even intangible things like status or relationships.
Exactly. We think owning or controlling these things will bring us happiness.
Yeah.
But Gurbani tells us that true fulfillment comes from connecting with the divine.
Right.
That's the path to liberation.
So Shavad Vichar helps us detach from those external cravings and redirect our focus inward.
Yes. It's about shifting from seeking satisfaction in the world to seeking union with the divine.
Right.
And Gurbani uses such striking imagery to describe this shift. On page 952, it says, "He alone is a householder who restrains his passions and begs for jap, tap, and sanjam."
Begs. That's an interesting word choice.
Yeah.
We usually associate begging with lack or neediness.
That's the beauty of Gurbani. It challenges our conventional thinking.
Okay.
In this context, begging signifies a humble surrender of the ego.
Right.
A liberated householder recognizes that true fulfillment doesn't come from worldly achievements, but from divine grace.
So it's about acknowledging our limitations and surrendering to a higher power. But how does this translate into daily life?
Right.
How does a liberated householder actually live?
Gurbani describes a liberated householder as someone who is pure as the Ganges water.
Oh, wow.
Meaning they have purified their consciousness through this process of surrender and devotion. They are present and engaged in their worldly duties, yet they remain detached from the outcomes.
So it's not about becoming indifferent
Yeah.
or emotionless,
Yeah.
but rather about experiencing life
Right.
with a sense of inner peace
Yeah.
and equanimity, regardless of the circumstances.
Exactly. On page 599, Gurbani says, "Those who remain wakeful obtain God. Through the Shabbat, they conquer their ego. Immersed in family life, God's humble servant ever remains detached. He reflects upon the essence of spiritual wisdom."
Wow.
This verse paints a vivid picture of a liberated householder.
That's a beautiful verse.
Yeah.
It emphasizes the importance of remaining present and aware,
Yeah.
of not getting lost in the hustle and bustle of life. It's about cultivating that inner stillness,
Yeah.
even while engaging in the world. But how do we reconcile the idea of being a householder with being detached?
Yeah.
It seems like there's a natural tension there.
That's where the concept of Shakshi-Bhav comes in.
Shakshi-Bhav.
It's a state of consciousness where the liberated householder observes life's events without emotional attachment.
Interesting.
They're like a witness,
Oh, okay.
silently observing the play of life unfolding without getting caught up in the drama.
So even when facing challenges or difficulties, they maintain that inner calm and clarity. They don't get swept away by their emotions.
Exactly. On page 952, Gurbani draws a parallel. He alone is a detached hermit who burns away his self-conceit.
Okay.
This highlights the inner transformation that's at the heart of liberation. It's not about our external circumstances, but about letting go of our ego, our sense of separation from the divine. And remember, this transformation isn't limited to hermits or renunciates.
Right.
It's accessible to everyone, including householders.
That's a powerful reminder. So a liberated householder isn't defined by their outward life, but by their inner state of being. It's about cultivating that detachment and awareness through Shabad Vichar,
Exactly.
leading to Shakshi Bhav, even while living in the midst of family and responsibilities. This is all starting to click for me.
Good.
But I'm wondering about the impact this transformation has on a householder's relationships.
Yeah.
Does Gurbani speak to that?
Absolutely. The transformation of a householder has a ripple effect
Okay.
on those around them, Yeah, their family and community.
So this inner transformation of a householder, it's not just an individual journey.
No, it's not just about you.
It affects their family and community too, right?
Exactly. And there are beautiful verses that highlight this ripple effect. On page 1370, it says, "Kabir, that family is good, in which God's slave is born." And on page 3, "The faithful find the door of liberation. The faithful uplift and redeem their family and relations." These verses show how the liberation of one person can positively impact their entire lineage.
Oh, wow.
It's like a light that shines outward.
Wow. I love those verses. It's so hopeful to think about the positive impact one person can have on those around them.
It really is.
But how does this transformation actually play out in their interactions? Does Gurbani give any specific examples?
Absolutely. It's not just about radiating good vibes, right?
Right.
It's a fundamental shift in how a liberated householder interacts with the world.
Cool.
On page 661, Gurbani says, in the midst of children and spouses, they attain emancipation. It's saying that liberation isn't about withdrawing from family life.
Right.
It's about finding freedom within those relationships.
That makes so much sense. So it's not about renouncing our roles as parents, spouses, or children.
Right.
It's about approaching those roles with a new understanding, a new awareness.
Precisely. And that's where Shakshi Bhav, that state of detached observation,
Okay.
becomes so crucial.
Right.
A liberated householder can fully engage with their family while maintaining that inner stillness.
Yeah.
They're present, they're loving,
Right.
but they're not attached in a way that creates suffering or turmoil.
That's such a beautiful and inspiring vision. It's like finding that sweet spot between being fully immersed in life
Yeah.
and maintaining a sense of detachment
Yeah.
that allows for true peace and joy.
Exactly. And remember, this state of Shakshi Bhav isn't something we force or achieve through willpower. It's a natural byproduct of connecting with our true nature,
Okay.
with the divine within.
So it's less about trying to control our thoughts and emotions and more about cultivating that inner connection, that understanding and letting go.
Precisely. And Gurbani emphasizes Shabad Vichar as the key to this transformation. Through reflection on the Guru's wisdom, we start to see the world differently.
Right.
We recognize the impermanence of all things and shift our focus from the external to the internal.
Okay.
On page 522, Gurbani reminds us, while laughing, playing, dressing, and eating, become liberated. It's not about denying ourselves the joys of life,
Right.
but about experiencing them with awareness and gratitude without clinging.
I love that. It's such a practical and empowering message.
Yeah.
Liberation isn't some distant goal.
Yeah.
It's something we can experience right here,
Yes.
right now,
Yeah.
in the midst of our everyday lives.
Exactly.
But Gurbani also talks about the love of family potentially increasing attachment to Maya, right?
Yeah, that's true.
How do we reconcile that with the idea of finding liberation within those relationships?
You're referring to the verse on page 1198. Burn away any love of family and relatives, which increases your attachment to Maya. One who does not savor God's love deep within lives in duality and corruption. It's a crucial point.
Okay.
Gurbani isn't saying we should abandon our families or stop loving them.
Right.
It's about purifying our love,
Okay.
freeing it from the attachments that create suffering. When we cultivate that deep connection with the divine within,
Right.
our love for others becomes unconditional and liberating.
That's a beautiful distinction.
Yeah.
So it's about moving from a love that's possessive and conditional to a love that's based on understanding,
Yes,
acceptance, and ultimately freedom.
exactly. And that transformation leads to a whole new way of being in the world.
Yeah.
On page 1019, Gurbani says, perfect is the work of that humble servant who remains unattached while in the body.
Wow.
This verse highlights the power of detachment. It's not about withdrawing from a world.
Right.
It's about engaging with it fully
Okay.
while remaining anchored in the divine.
This has been such an incredible deep dive. Your insights have truly helped me grasp this concept of a liberated householder in a way I never had before.
Well, I'm so glad to hear that.
It's inspiring to think about the potential we each have to embody this way of being, to bring that Shabad Surti, that God consciousness, into every aspect of our lives.
It's a beautiful journey.
It really is.
And it's a journey that's available to all of us,
Yeah.
you know, regardless of our external circumstances.
Absolutely.
It's really about that inner transformation
That's right.
and that connection with the divine. It's been a joy sharing these reflections with you. And remember,
Yep.
this is just a starting point.
Yeah.
The true depth and beauty of Gurbani can only be experienced through direct engagement with the GuruGranthSahib. We encourage everyone listening to explore these verses for yourselves,
Yes.
to let them sink in and see how they resonate with your own life.
That's such an important reminder. Gurbani is a living wisdom that speaks to each of us individually. So much gratitude for your time and insights today.
It's been my pleasure.
And to everyone listening, thank you for joining us on this Gurbani reflection.
Yes, thank you.
We look forward to diving into more of your profound questions next Wednesday. Until then, may the wisdom of Gurbani illuminate your path. And as always, if you feel that any part of the content we've shared today doesn't align with the GuruGranthSahib, we warmly welcome your feedback.
Yes, please share your thoughts with us.
Your insights and perspectives are invaluable to us.